Ka-Bar Kaster. This is the first time I've actually seen a company, in this case Ka-Bar, the US knife maker, actually make something that a lot of people would probably commonly know as a rodless reel or a hobo fishing kit. And basically, for those of you who don't know what that is, a hobo fishing kit is really just some fishing line wrapped around a tin can or a stick with a fishing rig on the end of it, and really just by hand casting into small creeks or rivers or lakes or whatever, you can catch fairly large amounts of small fish quite easily, which you can then use for bait fish or in a survival situation eating. You can catch larger fish also as well, but you know, without the aid of a rod, you're really just having to wind the line in, and that can become a bit tiresome. So generally when people use hobo fishing kits, they're really just after small fish. It's lightweight, it doesn't take up a lot of room. You can put this in the top of a pack, in a bug out bag. You can put this in the glove box of your car. You can put it in your pocket. It doesn't really get into in the way at all. It's fairly inexpensive, and you can carry enough fishing tackle inside one of these to go quite a long time, especially if you're careful about where you're fishing so that you don't lose your rig a lot. You can get quite a lot of line on there as well. And fishing is one of the most practical ways of gathering protein in a survival situation or a bushcraft type situation. So what I tend to do is, for me, this is something I carry with me when I go on bushcraft trips where I don't necessarily want to carry a fishing rod, because it's not really a fishing trip. It's really just a trip that I may happen to come across an area that I think is a good spot for a little bit of fishing, and you can catch you know, decent sized trout and things like that off these no problem without any real effort. I also would carry this in addition to my survival fishing kit, which is actually, my survival kit is a tin which contains, a large tin which contains survival items that I believe are useful, and within that kit is a fishing kit. This one I purchased, but then I've fortified with additional equipment that I'll go through at a later date. But basically this is secondary to this, and the contents of this really just can replenish this. So in addition to having a fishing survival kit inside my survival kit, I would have a larger pouch where I contain that, but I would also have this separately. And this would be my go-to fishing kit before using anything else. Unless, of course, I had a fishing rod or something. But for the most part, this would be my go-to kit. Because it's of a solid construction, I mean, this is made of quite robust plastic from the knife maker. The handle is very similar to the US Marine Corps type handle that you get on that the US Marine Corps knife, the Ka-Bar knife. It feels solid. It'd be incredibly difficult to break this, and even when it's got the line and tackle inside it, because this is a hollow cavity in here, it floats. So if you drop it in the water, it won't just sink like a stone. It also has a lanyard hole if you wanted to attach a lanyard on there as well. And basically, it just unscrews. It has an O-ring, so it's completely sealed to the water, which will protect your tackle a little bit longer. Because it's made of plastic, it's completely resistant to rot or anything like that, which, if you're in the tropics, if you're in a tropical environment, this I would think is a better option to something that is commonly used in the tropics, which is really just a wooden version of the hand reel. What you see a lot of people in the tropics doing, because they don't tend to use fishing rods that often, the waterways there are quite easily accessible and there's a lot of fish in them. They would have a sort of wooden version of this, slightly larger version of this, made of wood that they've probably, you know, made, and they would do some small casts with that, or jig for fish off, you know, a slightly elevated position. There's nowhere to keep your tackle, however, and like I say, if it's made of wood, then it's liable to rot and damage. Whereas this solid plastic isn't going to rot and it's not going to damage easily. One other benefit to this over the bushcraft type ones that you see is the cavity can be a little bit larger, because often the ones that people make or that you buy from the bushcraft websites, they're about a similar size, you know, about 6 inches long, but in order to try and keep the size of it down so that it's nice to hold in your hand, the cavity is usually very small because it has to be strong enough to, you know, be a working device. And, you know, plastic is going to be stronger than wood when it gets to a sort of thin wall. So just a quick look at what I keep inside mine. Obviously it's dependent on where you are and what you're trying to fish for, and your skill as a fisherman will, you know, change the way that you change what kind of tackle you carry and how you do it. I'm not a big fisherman, but I find that for me, I'm looking for small trout and small fish and burns and lakes round about where I live. So I've got some small pre-rigged hooks already pre-rigged on the line, so all I have to do is clip them onto the line onto this. Some artificial bait of different sizes and colours. That's pretty much what I keep in the top half of the spool. A couple of trebles with a feather and a small lure. A couple of other small pre-rigged hooks with a couple of small lures, a couple of different colours. Some swivels, some weights, and then here I've got some swivels and clips, so that all I have to do is attach it directly onto my line with the pre-rigs that I've already got made up, so I'm not having to faff around too much. It doesn't come with anything when you purchase it, it's just the plastic handle itself and the spool. And there's no line on it when you get it. The clip just holds the line in place. Put a choice of line on it. You can get away with a little bit of heavier line on these spools because you're not worrying too much about your cast or whatever, because you're really only casting as far as you can throw that small weight, which is not usually very far at all, so you're not doing any big casts or anything like that. Or you're jigging it off a small elevated position. There is a little bit of extra room in there that I could probably keep a few other things in there if I wanted to. But this is pretty much all I need at the moment for the kind of stuff that I'm likely to do. In a tropical environment, I would obviously change a fair amount of this to suit whatever it was that I was likely to be catching in that environment. I do in the future intend on doing a few videos involving the tropics, and things like this will be coming with me, so that will happen at some point in the future. But yeah, this is pretty much just a basic look at the Ka-Bar caster. You can actually also attach a rig to the line and then put the line inside the handle and close it up with it already attached. So it's good to go that way. I've seen a few people doing that where their rig is already assembled, and then it's really just a case of letting the rig drop out, put the handle back on, and you're good to go that way. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear from anybody that has one of these, that have used one. I haven't actually used this one yet. I know it works because I've seen other people using them online, and it's the first type that I've seen like this that's made by a company like Ka-Bar. I've only ever really seen, like I say, the homemade bushcraft types. But so far I'm quite impressed with how it feels and how much I can get into it, and I'm fairly looking forward to giving it a try. So you may see some videos in the future of this getting used.